This afternoon's demonstration is how to make a human bust. It could be male or female. I actually haven't made up my mind yet, but I'll figure it out as go along. The piece of clay I'm using is 15 centimeters long, 10 centimeters high, and 6 centimeters wide. Before I started, I have just made this very basic support that'll go inside, and whenever the clay is leather hard, I will cut the back of the head and remove this. I tend to use bubble wrap rather than paper because I find that once you've taken the section off to reveal the inner, it's easier to remove the bubble wrap. It doesn't stick to the clay quite the same as scrunched up newspaper does. It's just easier to pull away and to remove cleanly. Plus, newspaper, sometimes you can get sharp corners that stick into the clay and can make your clay a wee bit too thin and not as strong. So this will be removed once the clay is leather hard, because you can't really keep an armature inside a sculpture, because as the clay dries it shrinks, and if you don't have the armature removed, then the clay will crack as it tries to shrink round a solid. Or this another reason I like bubble wrap is there's a bit of give with it, so the clay can start to shrink without it causing cracks. So I have made this armature out of bubble wrap and folded up toilet tube liner, and again, that just because I've folded it up, that gives me a wee bit of strength, but because it's not too compact, it's easier to remove once I've finished. So the first thing I'm going to do is create the shoulder base. So this at the minute is 16 centimeters high. Really would actually have measured, but it should be about 8. Yeah, it is. So it's 16 centimeters high, and this head ball, skull ball if you like, is half the height takes to the bottom of the skull. So I know it's 16 there, so I'm going to half of that is 8, so I'm going to cut half of the height, which is where the skull ends. Half of that height is also where I want the width of the shoulders. So I'm going to cut a wee piece of clay. So I'll just cut a wee bit of clay. It is really quite warm here today, even though I have the window open. I'm going to have to go down to the studio and get another fan because it's really warm. I'm sorry it's a wee bit late starting today. I've got quite a lot of work to get finished off first, which is one of the reasons I do these classes on a Friday afternoon. The plan is that I have all my own work completed for the week before I start into these. That kind of lets me have a clear head for starting off. So hopefully I'll just say about 8. That's too wide, so I'll just take a part of the knife. I'm just going to cut. Let's see how some packages. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to find the center. At the minute it's 10. What I did there is I kind of find the center of the clay, and then I'm cutting an equal amount off each side. Once I have that done, I'm just going to go my hand. I'll turn it around to see what that's probably. Of course, this is a really bad angle with the camera. I'd have to have a fiddle about with this. But this is quite a good angle for the back of the head, and this is quite a good angle for the front of the head. So whenever you've made it, you know, turn your, it's like a lollipop, turn your lollipop around and decide which best suits the back. So I'm just going to stick this right in here. And that'll hold that quite steady. Just check my height again. Yeah, ta-da. So I will just then add some thick sections. This is a different way of making than I normally use, but it does mean that you save some clay. So I'm going to cut a wee section like this and wrap it around from the neck. So I'm almost putting this on like a collar. I don't want to press it in too much to the cardboard, because if I can have it just sort of loosely sitting around it like a collar, it's going to be easier to remove the cardboard. I'm just going to join that together. As you can see there, it's quite loosely, and I will thin this out a bit more. And then I'm just going from the other side down. Okay. And then I'm just going to cover the head one. When you're creating the skull, if you think of the back of the skull as, you know, from the back of the skull, the occipital bone being a ball, and then hugging the ball is a flatter plane of the face. So we need this to be a nice round section. So I'm just going to add some clay on, wrap that round, and then blend it in. So it looks fairly thick there, but it'll be thinner by the time I'm finished. So this is going to be the back of the head. So from the neck, it's going to come right round. So this form of making is a very rough form of slab building. Those slabs are generally cut out very precisely from the clay, rolled, allowed to stiffen slightly, and then wrapped around. We're just doing this because it's quite a small scale. We can just do it straight from the block. So, just wanted a wee bit thinner than this. And because the clay is quite wet, you don't really have to set it much. Just cross saturate it here. I'm just smoothing that in. So we're going to do a lot more smoothing in this. Just the bits that I have left over, and just add these in. Build out to get the skull shape. I'm going to use this, when I'm finished this, I'm going to cut a wee section of the head and use it as a wee planter to grow wee chives in. I'm really just getting the clay on. I'm just smoothing this out, so I'm going to actually just cut this roughly, because I want to put a flatter plane on of thicker clay for forming the base. Let's see. And anywhere, like I know there's not enough clay there, so I'm just going to add a wee bit extra on. So, no, that's not blended in yet, but hopefully you can see that the back of the skull, let me lift that up here, the back of the skull is like a ball. You know, and similar to making pets, making a head isn't as difficult as people think, because for a start you've got your own subject. You can look at yourself in the mirror and feel your own bone structure. So if you feel the back of your head, you'll feel a wee notch about there, in the middle of the back of the skull, called the occipital ridge, and then feel how the neck goes in underneath that. So you need that ball shape back of the head. And then, I don't want to go too fast in this either. So if you think of that, this is the back of the head and this is a ball. Half the distance between the front and the back. And sometimes if you're trying to, if you don't have calipers, if you actually just put one finger at the front and one finger at the back, it's easier to gauge the midway line from the 2 points. If you're, it's easier if I hold it like that. It's easier to gauge the centre of this space by holding a finger at the back and a finger at the front than just doing it by eye. Or you could measure it, of course. So if I say that's the centre line, that's where that skull's going to go up there a wee bit. And come down around here, and the ears will fit in behind that line. So I'll just do a wee bit more work to make it even. And I'll add on a wee bit of extra clay where I need to. So the first things I'm going to do is just get that nice back of the skull shape. So when I'm doing this, I'm compacting clay as well, which is a good thing. Alright, and then I'll just finish blending this in. I'm going to need more color. So you can see the back of the skull having that round ball shape, and then by contrast, the front of the skull is a lot, but the face is a lot flatter. So make that more symmetrical. Then we find the halfway mark. And a little bit more jewelry. So whilst the back of the skull should be a nice ball shape, fairly even. The front face should be more of an oval. This one needs to be round a bit more. Oh, I forgot to set my timer. Oh, what are we doing now? I have to set a timer because I can only record an hour at a time. I'll get to this stage and just see if I can figure something out. Does this have a clock on it? No, it doesn't. I added a wee bit too much on it. Just blend this in a wee bit more so it's a better. Although it's flat, it's not completely flat. Need a wee bit more roundness there. I'm just going to fill it there about the same height. So I'm just looking for the balance. I'll need to go like that. I think I've got roughly the right height of face there, so I'm happy with that. So I think what I'll do is now I have the bulk of the skull put in. I'm going to mark the halfway line, the centre line, and the third lines, and then I'll briefly stop the video and sort out my timer. Okay, so this is going to be the size, the height of the face. So what I'm looking to do is, how do we say, go for the head of the face and 10. So really the same. So that's my halfway line there. So this is the center line here. That's going to be the eye line. And then we need a center line widthwise. Oh. If you have calipers and you're looking for your center line, just be typical, you can't see. When I stop the video, I'm going to change the angle of this camera. That won't do it all. If you go straight from the hinge of your calipers, that's going to give you the halfway mark. So that's the center of the face, and the eye line. So that's they're like, that's just quartered the front of the face from top to the crown of the head to the chin in half, and width to width in half gives you that line. And that really does help with the eyes. Your eyes are going to be on that line. But then you have to decide on the hairline. And the hairline comes down slightly. You know, it comes down slightly there. You know, it depends on the person too. Some people have a very low widow's peak, and maybe would have a lower hairline. So you look for the hairline anyway, depending on the subject you're doing. So once I have that line in, I'm going to divide from here to here into thirds. So that's going to be line. Okay. And then half of, well, this is kind of like the nose line, half of that again. Okay. And then because there's 5 eye widths, I'm just going to I'm just doing this roughly. Okay. Just take the wee third line there. So that's dividing the width of the face into thirds as well. And that's going to give me the kind of centre of the eye, the corner of the mouth. Right, I'm going to stop the video briefly here and I'm going to see if I can get this at a better angle. Start my video, or start my timer. Back with you in just a moment.